Good morning, my name is Josh from Cyclones Oz, and here's your detailed weather forecast update for Monday, the 1st of December, the first day of summer. A lot to get through today's weather forecast update, so if you're brand new to my channel, please do consider subscribing. But again, let's get stuck straight into things this morning. We've got a very limited thunderstorm risk through southeast Queensland. We've got a little bit of thunderstorm activity on the forecast through parts of central Queensland, but the next significant event on our weather forecast for Queensland is going to be up into the far north, where we're going to be looking at a little bit of rainfall coming in, and that's going to happen sometime towards the middle parts of this week. Already you can see a couple of thunderstorm activity bubbling away in the northern parts of Queensland. We actually had some pretty good rainfall up through the Atherton tablelands over the past 3 or 4 days, and some pretty healthy rainfall accumulations as well through the western edge of the Cape York Peninsula. And this thunderstorm activity has been more or less relentless over the last couple of days. It is expected to calm down a little bit throughout the course of today. You can see whilst we do still expect some widespread thunderstorm activity throughout the remainder of this afternoon and this evening, we will be seeing a bit of a reduction in severity of this thunderstorm activity, and it's going to be a little bit more northerly focused as well. You can see our thunderstorms up here into the Daintree rainforest and inland from Cooktown and north of Mount Carbine, for example, with limited thunderstorm activity along the North Queensland coastline down towards Mackay. It'll be very patchy down there. We don't have the instability in the environment that we had yesterday, where we had those Cape values tickling on 5 or even 6,000 in a few spots. It's closer to about 2,000 today, which means thunderstorms will have a harder time getting off the ground. It's still a favourable environment though, and some potentially severe thunderstorms may make themselves known up here towards far north Queensland, but it's most likely to be inland from Cairns and then inland from the Daintree rainforest, and for locations a little bit further north as well into the late afternoon hours between 2 o'clock out to about 6 o'clock. You can see that rainfall then dies off pretty quickly as that sun goes down, and then limited storm activity and rainfall activity is on the forecast through tomorrow morning, but it looks like another thunderstorm outbreak will get itself going as we get out towards tomorrow afternoon and evening. And Tuesday's weather forecast starts to get a little bit more interesting. You can see those winds are expected to intensify out of the southeast, and that is going to begin to bring that rainfall in. Let's have a look at that wind forecast right now. Those wind gusts through Tuesday night into Wednesday morning beginning to pick up here towards the far north Queensland coastline, particularly around the Hinchbrook Island area and towards the north of Townsville up towards Cairns. These wind gusts go from an average of about 15 to 20 kilometres an hour at this time of the year to, in a few spots, 50 or 60 kilometres an hour. So those southeasterly winds, those trade winds, are going to bring that rainfall ashore, and you can see as we push this forecast out to include Wednesday afternoon and evening, heavy rainfall is expected to move in towards far north Queensland. Now, I use the term heavy rainfall pretty loosely. For this time of the year before the monsoon, this rainfall is considered heavy. However, if we're comparing this to January or February or March rainfall, it is pretty light. That kind of goes without saying. We're going to be seeing this train of rainfall here, which you can see pushing in towards the far north Queensland coastline, particularly around the Cassowary coast, begin to pipe up through the late afternoon hours of Wednesday and really begin to ramp up through Wednesday night into early Thursday morning. We'll also see some shower activity push into the Daintree rainforest as well, and even Cairns may get a drop or two, but the rainfall is expected to stop south of Palm Island, which means Townsville and surrounding communities such as Rolling Stone, Magnetic Island, then down towards Bowen and Mackay are going to be left high and dry. Now, through Wednesday night into Thursday morning, that rainfall really does pick up, and in a few spots we are going to be talking about some relatively decent rainfall accumulations. In fact, as we zoom in here, you can see hourly rainfall accumulations could be between the 10 to 15 millimetre mark right through Wednesday night into Thursday morning, and you do quick calculations on that, that brings some pretty significant rainfall accumulations into the gauges from Wednesday night into Thursday morning here. This is just over a 36-hour period. Now, whilst again this isn't anything special considering our wet season rainfall that is coming, but for the time of the year before the monsoon, this is still some pretty significant stuff. And zooming right in here, you can see those rainfall accumulations really do pick up into the high 100s up to about 180, 190 millimetres in 1 or 2 spots here. To Innisfail expecting about 100 millimetres, Tully a little bit drier, and I'll explain why that is. This rainfall is going to be extremely isolated in nature. The heaviest of this is expected to be south of the Yarrabah Peninsula, right down to about Innisfail, or where the Johnston River comes out, which means we're going to be looking at Belennon, Kerr and Fishery Falls picking up our bulk rainfall here, and we could be talking about some falls between the 100 to 300 millimetre mark, particularly if a convergence zone does develop, which is a possibility. For that to happen, we would need this low pressure system to develop just offshore around here. Right now it's looking like that low pressure system will develop a little bit further towards the north, and that's going to funnel this rainfall more generally further away from the coastline and really keep the heaviest stuff slightly offshore. But if it does draw a little bit closer to the coastline, that's where we're going to be talking about 300 millimetres coming through Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Not overly likely at this point in time, but it's a possibility and definitely an angle of the forecast that we need to be paying close attention to. In Innisfail, I predict about 150 millimetres, and then further south down to Tully, and then as far south as Cardwell and the Johnston and the Hinchbrook Island area, you can see rainfall accumulations really do drop off into the high single digits, and then as far south as Cardwell and Ingham, rainfall accumulations get below 10 millimetres millimeters. You can see Cardwell there looking at 6.7 millimeters. Cairns itself should see 25 millimeters of rainfall. It will be interesting to see if rainfall does pick up into the Daintree rainforest, but again, for that to happen, the low pressure system will have to develop further north. It's possible, but at this point in time, it really does look like the Cassowary Coast is where the rainfall is going to be. And major forecast models are beginning to come on board with that as well. The GFS has been very slow to change the prediction, but the Icon has picked up that rainfall for the Cassowary Coast whilst dropping the rainfall for the Daintree rainforest, and the Access as well is now really picking up rainfall onto the Cassowary Coast whilst dropping the rainfall marginally from yesterday's forecast to the Daintree rainforest. And what that means is that there is now a solid trend towards heavy rainfall for the Cassowary Coast and a reducing trend for rainfall into the Daintree rainforest. Now again, I need to stress this, I can feel the comments already, that this is nothing in the way of wet season rainfall that's coming through. A couple of 100 millimeters, stock standard stuff, business as usual for far north Queensland, but it is a clear example that the seasons are changing, that monsoon is not far away, and with this sort of rainfall, if 300 millimeters does come through overnight, it is going to cause some flooding, and it will cause some moderate flooding at that. They have had some rainfall up in far north Queensland back in September, and there is still a little bit of water around as a result, particularly into the lower ground levels. There's plenty of water around still in far north Queensland, but for the most part, it will be good to see some rainfall up into far north Queensland because, again, our moisture anomalies are now beginning to dip down through the far north, and whilst we have had a good round of thunderstorms, particularly into the Atherton Tablelands, it's never a good sign at this time of the year when moisture values in the soils are beginning to drop below normal thresholds here along the Cassowary Coast. So it'd be good to see a little bit of rainfall up in towards far north Queensland. 100 to 200 millimeters would be welcome. 300 millimeters is verging on problematic, but it will be good to see this rainfall come through, and you can see those soil moisture values jumping significantly as we get out towards Friday. Now, southeast Queensland, good news, dry conditions for the remainder of the week. We're expecting a couple of thunderstorm chances to arise here and there, including one opportunity this afternoon and this evening into the Gold Coast hinterland where we may see an isolated thunderstorm or two again. Temperatures are just not getting up there today through southeast Queensland. We'd need these temperatures to rise up to about 35 or 36, and that's just not going to happen, and humidity as well is pretty appalling, all things considered. We've got a lot of that dry air pushing in from the west, and that's going to keep things for the most part high, dry and stable. We don't have much instability either contracted to the southeast Queensland coastline, and that is again going to prevent those thunderstorms from really getting off the ground. But you can think of this as a big build-up. We have another thunderstorm chance as we get out towards this weekend, and you can think of all of this calm weather really beginning to build up and stew as we get out towards Saturday and Sunday. So no thunderstorm chances out until then, but we're going to be watching Saturday and Sunday like a hawk. I pointed this out about 2 days ago now, but Sunday is really smelling quite nasty through southeast Queensland. It's smelling like a big thunderstorm outbreak, and I've been talking to a couple of chasers through southeast Queensland, some of the storm chasers down there that have some incredible local knowledge and some great meteorology knowledge as well, more than I have, to be frank, and they are saying that Sunday is looking like one of the most potent severe thunderstorm setups of the year so far, rivaling Monday the 24th of November. Now, I'm not going to say that because I don't want to use that term lightly or loosely, and of course, considering that we are talking about Sunday the 7th of December, a week away, things can and most certainly will change, and they will change pretty dramatically, but we are still talking about the risk of some significant thunderstorms. It's a very convectively favourable environment, and it is going to be primed for severe thunderstorm development. As we zoom right in on southeast Queensland here, you can see our convective available potential energy values through Sunday shoot through the roof, up into the 2000s, and considering again that this is a long-range estimate, it definitely smells like it could increase. These numbers could come up even further, and look at this, just offshore from New South Wales on that southeasterly change, convective available potential energy values shoot up into the 4000s. Now, CAPE, or convective available potential energy, is our instability metric in the environment for these thunderstorms. Without CAPE, you don't have thunderstorms, but keep in mind, CAPE is, whilst it's a key player in thunderstorm development, it's not everything. You can have the most incredible CAPE setups like we did have on Thursday last week, and yesterday, to be frank, through southeast Queensland, and still thunderstorms completely bust out. So we're going to be watching this like a hawk. I'm going to consider making some more forecasts on Sunday and really see what does come out here, but it is still an interesting day on the forecast right now. Our soundings look incredible as well. We've got significant separation from our temperature line, which is looking like this, and our humidity line, which takes a big dip into the mid-levels and then rises again. So a moist environment apart from that slot into the mid-levels, again, very, very favourable for some large, potentially giant hailstones to develop. This is exactly what you want to be seeing in a high-end severe thunderstorm setup. And also, may I bring your attention to this, where those wind contours, which are coming out of the north here, change to coming out of the south here along at this line. This is that southeasterly change that pushes through southeast Queensland through big thunderstorm outbreaks. And it's what we saw come through on Monday just gone. That's what presented the southeast Queensland with that basically superstorm, for lack of a better term. We're going to be looking at another one of those setups on Sunday. Now, whilst that doesn't always mean severe thunderstorm potential is going to be through the roof, it is a massive trigger for severe thunderstorms. We've had a couple of these this year already, and every single one of these southeasterly triggers has produced hailstones in excess of 8 centimetres, with Mondays producing hailstones between 13 to 14 centimetres in diameter. So Sunday really is a day to watch right now. I wouldn't be adjusting your plans already for Sunday, but I'd definitely be considering putting Sunday as being a bit of a storm watch day. Put it onto the back burner, consider making changes to plans, and I'll have some more information on this throughout the rest of the week. And by Wednesday, we should know exactly what we're in for as we roll out towards Sunday. It's going to be an interesting one, and Sunday definitely presenting the risk of some big time severe thunderstorms. It looks like it is going to be that isolated supercell thunderstorm risk day once again. And to be honest, the only analog that I can think of that's coming off the top of my head right now is Monday, the 24th of November, that storm that dropped those 13 to 14 centimetre hailstones into the Brisbane area. Now, whilst that's unlikely to happen again towards the magnitude that we saw on Monday, it gives you a bit of an idea and a bit of a comparison to draw already, but this is not an event to be worrying about or panicking about at this point in time. Just consider this update as your courteous heads up ahead of potential severe thunderstorm development. And again, I will be watching this one like a hawk. Now, over the next couple of days after Sunday, thunderstorm forecasts do become a little bit more uncertain. We do have a few more storms in the forecast as we get out towards the 8th and the 9th of December, but things overall take a bit of a turn for a quieter period as we get out towards the first 2 weeks of December. Initially, we did expect some rainfall through southeast Queensland as we get into towards the first 2 weeks of December, but that's since been dropped, and I think we're only going to be looking at a couple of thunderstorm risk days here and there, but for the most part, looking high and dry as we get out towards the first 2 weeks of December rather, and that should change as we get into the last 2 weeks of December around Christmas time, likely to see some significant storm activity across southeast Queensland. The rest of the nation as well remaining pretty calm. We do have a couple of tropical interests though towards the north of Australia, and the forecast models have now been very keen on this Indonesia tropical cyclone here that's going to be moving close to the West Australian coastline, but is no significant threat. And we've also picked up a second system here into the Solomon Sea, which may eventually become a tropical cyclone threat into the Coral Sea. Now, I would like to say take this system with a pinch of salt, because this is just a one-run wonder so far. We've only had 1 or 2 forecast runs suggesting this Solomon Sea system, but considering it's going to align with another Marginally oscillation burst, it isn't completely out of the question. Now, Coral Sea tropical cyclones are pretty rare in the month of December. We typically start to see the Coral Sea pick up in towards January and February, so this would be an interesting system to watch, but I wouldn't be completely discounting it right now. And again, a system that I want to keep a close eye on. Over and towards the waters of Western Australia, this is one that's a little bit more certain, and again, it's definitely one that I'm going to be tracking very closely in the next couple of days. But we may see a tropical cyclone developing around the 10th of December, moving offshore from Indonesia and then tracking out into the warmer and favourable conditions offshore from Western Australia as a potentially strong tropical low or into tropical cyclone territory. Now, the good news is, and we've been talking about this quite a lot over the last couple of days, is wherever this system tracks, it's likely to be moving in a southwesterly direction, which means it's not going to impact Western Australia. The risk of an Australian or a mainland tropical cyclone threat into the next 3 weeks it's nil. It's basically nil for either the Northern Territory or Western Australia, or even by extension Queensland. There's really no risk of tropical cyclone activity. This is still a system worth the watch though, because it could increase temperatures through parts of Western Australia. It could spark a thunderstorm outbreak or two. This is still a system that may have an impact on the West Australian weather scene, and it may also bring some rainfall, particularly if it passes close enough to the Kimberley region when it does develop. It may also bring some rainfall, which could be heavy at times through parts of the northern Kimberley. Think Wyndham, Kununurra, Columbaroo, and even down towards Derby and Broome. We may be talking about some rainfall, but again, possibilities of that are pretty low at this point in time. And other major forecast models, of course, still have this system on the forecast, but as a marginally weaker system as well. And the GFS actually has this a lot further out into the Cocos-Keeling Islands territory, well offshore from Western Australia, and as I said, really not a threat. Now, just panning things back into the Queensland side of things, I would just like to say that when we begin to see forecast models with the same sort of system, keep in mind the Eastern have had their low pressure system here at the end of the forecast period around December 13th to December 16th. The GFS forecast model has this tropical low here into the Gulf of Carpentaria. Now, it's kind of the same system, it's kind of the same sort of formation. It's a feature that I want to be watching right now as the potential for a Coral Sea tropical low potentially impacting the Queensland mainland. But I also would like to say that this is just a system that I want to be watching right now, and not a system that I believe that you should be preparing for or making mass panic about, or really considering that the possibility of this system coming for Queensland, because the chance for Queensland landfall is right now nada. When we're talking about a long-range tropical cyclone threat such as this one here, which is beyond 10 days out onto the forecast models, we have to take into account model uncertainty, and there's a lot of it still. Forecast models are generally speaking pretty bad at making predictions 10 days out or further into the future, and that's why you never see me making predictions based off features that are 10 to 14 days out into the future. I simply bring them up and tell you that this is possible, but it is going to change, and this situation here is going to change dramatically. My personal opinion is something into the Solomon Sea, recurving down towards New Caledonia and never becoming a problem for Queensland at all. But again, things can change, and it is still a feature that I want to be keeping close tabs on at this point in time. But anyways, that is going to do it for today's weather forecast update. I apologize for no soundings today. You know I love my soundings, but I've just gone through and got a new computer. I actually purchased it last night, and it's been a bit of a mission to get it all set up, and I'm trying to figure out how the Magic Mouse works and all of that sort of stuff. So if you've got any advice on how to get soundings on a computer, on a PC setup over on windy.com, then let me know in the comment section down below. I'm always learning and always happy to take further advice. And just to add to that as well, if you've got any feedback on these video updates, then let me know in the comment section down below as well. I'd be more than happy to take a look. But that's going to do it for me today. A bit of a quieter day through Queensland and the northern parts of Australia. I'll have an update on the La Nina situation tonight, and I'll catch you on the next storm. Goodbye.